Tonight is their 16th year. It's your night. Ron, Justin Morris, Kelly, Tim Shaw. It's a wonderful night for all of Livonia to salute wonderful people being inducted into the 1835 Livonia City Hall of Fame. Would you rise with me now? And Reinke, President of the United States, will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
We have a flag with many stars. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you be seated? It's my pleasure to introduce Kate Mackey for purposes of an invocation for the evening, but as warm as it is, please remain seated. Kate?
So it is my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome each of you here to Rosedale Gardens Presbyterian Church. We are a faith community made up of broken people from a variety of walks of life that recognize the loving grace of Jesus Christ working in and through us in order to practice welcoming relationships to God's glory. We are a people committed to being followers of Christ and to do our best to practice hospitality by serving neighbor and stranger alike. We are a people who take seriously the message of Jesus Christ by feeding the hungry, taking care of the orphan and the widow, and comforting the heartsick and heartbroken. I welcome you to this joy-filled community of faith, a mission station for Jesus Christ right here in the heart of Livonia, a community of God's people for more than 93 years. We recognize that every soul that walks through our doors, every soul that worships with us online or engages with us through social media, every soul that passes by our doors is a beloved child of God and is welcomed here. We are beyond grateful and thankful for our partnership with this amazing city, its leaders, its residents, past and present. And we so look forward to maintaining and strengthening these partnerships so that together we may look to the future with the anticipation of hope and excitement for what God will lead us to next. So I welcome you here to Rosedale Gardens this night. Let us pray. Creator God, we give you thanks for this evening and the opportunity to honor those in our midst who have dedicated their lives in a variety of ways to being servants to their community. As we celebrate each of them, we also celebrate you, recognizing the gifts you have given each of them, gifts used to strengthen community, gifts used to inspire others, gifts used to combat injustice, gifts used to fight for freedom, gifts used to inspire hospitality, and gifts used to be lights in the darkness. Bless this evening, Lord God, in the same way you have blessed this community. In your Son's name I pray. Amen. Amen.
Well, good evening. It's so great to see everybody here again this year. We appreciate you coming out. I was handed a short list of some Hall of Fame members who are with us tonight. We have Bill Heaton, Steve King, Matt Collins, and Laura Joy, who you will hear from shortly. For those of you who don't know the background of this event, the 1835 Livonia Hall of Fame was created with the first class inducted way back in 2005, with inductions every year since then except for the COVID pause last year. It's called the 1835 Hall of Fame in recognition of the year that Livonia Township was incorporated. It was the thought of community that inspired the creation of the 1835 Livonia City Hall of Fame, recognizing individuals and groups from the arts, education, philanthropy, business, public and government service, and volunteerism. And this year is no exception, as the 6 individuals being inducted into the class of 2021, joining the 127 previous individuals and groups that have been inducted, embody that sense of community. I now want to introduce our co-presider for this evening, my good friend Terry Reinke, a graduate of Bentley High School and Madonna University. Terry has served our community as a member of the Livonia Board of Education, as Livonia City Clerk, and as a member of the Livonia City Council. And she is now in her 3rd term on the Wayne County Board of Commissioners. Let's greet Terry Reinke with a round of applause.
Thank you, Alan. Alan has been a friend of mine for 45 years. So, let me introduce Alan. He's a graduate of Stevenson High School, the University of Michigan, and the Wayne State University Law School. And I'm fortunate to work with Alan at the County Commission. He's a huge asset to us. And again, he's been my friend for many, many years. So let's move on to the program. This year, our inductees once again embody the full spectrum of important contributions to our history and community. Today, we induct a husband and wife business hospitality team who made popular the phrase heard around the state, if we're going to have a conference, let's meet in Livonia. We induct a leader of Livonia faith community who takes her ministry into the community on a daily basis. We have a nationally recognized sports figure who, despite reaching the pinnacle of sports success, never forgot his hometown or the schools helping provide him with the skill set to reach the top. And a leader who recognized that for a community to be a success for all ages, there needed to be a development of parks, a park system that would be the envy of communities across the state. And we inducted an early settler of Livonia who enlisted in the Civil War as part of the All-Black Brigade, who died before returning home to see his family on the homestead they farmed at 7 in Newburgh. But first, it's my pleasure to introduce Dan McAbee, President of Financial and Portfolio Advisors, for the purposes of accepting the class of 2021 for the business community. Dan.
For over a decade, Financial and Portfolio Advisors has been the proud sponsor of the 1835 Livonia City Hall of Fame. As a company, we understand the benefits our hometown receives by acknowledging not only the history, but the cultural foundation our founders brought and bring to Livonia, establishing a powerful sense of community and a strong relationship with our businesses. With the business community recognizing the Hall of Fame, we are empowering and inspiring our talented community with the necessary tools to be able to make meaningful and sustainable differences to Livonia, to become the next generation of change agents, to follow in the footsteps of recreational leaders like Reinke, our faith leaders like Kelly Whitlock, our business leaders reaching across the state like John and Lena Signore, our athletes like Tim Shaw, who leave our hometown but never forget their Livonia roots, and our soldiers who leave their families behind to fight to preserve our union, like Alexander Wells. There is a symbiotic relationship between those living in Livonia and those working in Livonia. For that reason, I'm happy to accept the 1835 Livonia City Hall of Fame Class of 2021 on behalf of the Livonia business community.
I now get to introduce Jim Jolly. Jim is a graduate of Catholic Central High School, Western Michigan University, and the University of Detroit Mercy Law School. He serves on the Livonia City Council and is the former magistrate of our 16th District Court. He also serves as Associate Dean at Lawrence Technological University. Please welcome for purposes of accepting the class of 2021 on behalf of the City of Livonia, Councilman Jim John.
Well, thank you all for being here. It would be a dishonor to not point out the significance of having everybody together and doing these things that we so commonly used to do. This is always one of my favorite events of the year because we get to learn about our history as Livonia from way back when and also from the present time. We get to hear the stories and the wisdom of those people who brought it to us, right? And bring it to us on a daily basis. So the Livonia community is one that prides itself on our strength of our volunteer, our business, and our government sectors working together. The cooperation of each of these does, in fact, create a solid Livonia, one that brings us a hometown in which we are proud of. The 1835 Livonia City Hall of Fame has over 16 years of work and effort highlighting the impact of our founders from 100 years ago, 50 years ago, and just a couple of years ago, even today. We have made Livonia a hometown that stands for families, develops businesses, and our organizations as well. It is my pleasure to accept the class of 2021 on behalf of my colleagues from the City Council and the residents of the City of Livonia, all 95,000 of them, maybe a little bit more. I think it's a little bit higher. You have made an impact on our community, and you've given us all something to live up to, and we're very proud to have you in our community and thankful for the work that you've done. It's my honor to accept you on behalf of our community. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to introduce another friend of mine from 45 years ago. For more than 4 decades, Laura Toy has been an active volunteer and leader in the Livonia community. A lifelong resident, Livonia resident, and graduate of Bentley High School and the University of Michigan, Laura was first elected to the Livonia City Council in 1988. She has served as a trustee at Schoolcraft College, as a Livonia City Treasurer, State Representative, State Senator, and now again on City Council, and she's served in this role as President several times. Please welcome with me Livonia City Councilwoman Laura Toy for the purpose of introducing John and Lena Delsinger.
She's an old bulldog. She's older. Anyhow, I just want to, and I have the privilege tonight to introduce some neighbors of mine from Plymouth Road. For many years, we were neighbors. They had the restaurant there, and my flower store was on the same side of the road. And little Renetta would get off the bus, and Colleen and I and our staff would help watch her, and she was such a delight. And just a wonderful, wonderful family. In fact, in 1958, John Del Signore left his hometown in Fonte d'Amore, Italy, to join the Del Signore men working in Venezuela's construction industry. There, the men worked hard but ate well, as they each took turns cooking old family recipes from home. After almost 10 years, John decided to leave Venezuela to embark on a future in the United States, but not before first returning to Fonte d'Amore to marry Lena. In 1964, John and Lena opened Giovanni's Pizzeria in Livonia and later the Italian Hub. This was eventually replaced by Fonte d'Amore Restaurant, a long-standing Del Signore landmark featuring home-cooked Italian food that had drawn rave reviews by restaurateurs from all over metropolitan Detroit area and for more than 25 years. Encouraged by their loyal restaurant patrons, in 1989, the Del Signores opened, you know it well, Laurel Manor Banquet and Conference Center. I don't think there's anybody in Michigan that hasn't been there. This popular wedding and reception location continues to be the measure of excellence by which other metropolitan Detroit reception sites strive to complete. Weddings, social events,
became the heart of the family's success. From the beginning, serving customers has been a family affair. John and Lena's children and grandchildren have all taken part in working in the family business. People from across the state of Michigan head to Livonia for their conferences, meetings, fundraising activities. Just another reason. Livonia is the center of not only southeastern Michigan, but the state of Michigan as well. They believe that the main reason for Laurel Manor's continued success is the family's emphasis on quality, home-cooked food, and pride they take in every dish that they serve, whether it's the first one out of the oven or the 1,000th. And you know, you give reason why everybody wants to be at the oven. It is by, and I'm only half, the better half. It is my pleasure, in purposes of the induction of the 1835, to introduce to you the godfather and the godmother of Livonia, John and Lena Delson.
John had a little teeny bijou house, no more than 800 square feet. And we were happy. We worked side by side. Even when he was fixing the cement basement, I was mixing the cement and give it to him. So with me and John, we never been, this is your job and this is my job. Always it's been together. So for someone who came to this country, the first thing that I learned, if you cannot drive and you have a home, my gosh, you can die and nobody will know. It's not like Italy, they have a bus and train. So the first thing I learned how to drive. I learned how to drive back and forth on my driveway. John had to tell me that there was someone in Newburgh and Cherry-Hill who speak Italian. I says, oh my gosh, I gotta get a driver license. So I make a phone call and I said to my neighbor, Pat, come. That's all I could say. She did not know where she was going. We went there, talked to him. I got my driver license. On the way back, I did not know to look for the gas cage. We ran out of gas.
It wasn't on the test.
And you know, we worked very hard. And the time of the gasoline was 17 cents a gallon. So one day I waited till it goes, and the next week it was 19. And I says, I'm gonna wait till it goes back to 17. It never happened. So for someone like me, come here, don't even know family, and we created something that we're so proud. 4 children, 8 grandchildren, 1 great-grandbaby, so many friends, that when my sons got married, there was only 960 people in a wedding, and my daughter 1,180. But I have one best friend, my husband.
After each inductee, we will be taking a picture of proclamations from Lori Pawlowski in the state legislature, Terry Morecki from the county board of commissioners, Mayor Brosnan, if you come up as well, Lori, and Dan representing Dana Balhecke, who is home killed tonight. So if you two would stand right here, and if you all would get right behind me. Dakota, there you go. Livonia's #1 photographer.
Yes, you can hold it right there so you can see. Wonderful. 1, 2. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm doing the introduction of Kevin Murphy. Kevin Murphy has been the athletic director of Clarenceville High School since 2004. He also oversees the athletic department at Clarenceville Middle School, where he has served as the assistant principal since 2007. He's a former health and physical education teacher and basketball and football coach for Clarenceville. Please welcome Kevin Murphy for the purposes of introducing Tim Shaw.
Thank you. Good evening. It's an absolute honor and privilege to be here this evening to introduce Tim. Tim Shaw, who was a 2002 graduate of Clarenceville High School. It was an honor to be his position coach in football and also his head basketball coach. Tim was an exceptional athlete at Clarenceville, playing football, basketball, and track, earning 11 varsity letters. As a football player, he was given the name Touchdown Tim by Nick McCabe of the Detroit Free Press, who covered high school sports. It was a fitting nickname, considering that after his high school career, he had 6 MHSAA records that he broke, those being total touchdowns in a season and total touchdowns in a career. Most rushing touchdowns in a career, most points in a season, and most points in a career scored. And the last one, most rushing yards in a career. So 6 MHSAA records that he broke in his 4-year career at Clarenceville. His senior year, he was named as Michigan Football Gatorade Player of the Year as he rushed for over 2,600 yards and scored 51 touchdowns. During his senior year of high school, Sports Illustrated magazine honored him in the Faces in the Crowd section, which used to be like the second or third page, if you guys remember that, for his amateur accomplishments. After his senior football season, his number 8 football jersey was retired at Clarenceville. A few years ago, there was an article of the top high school running backs in the state of Michigan over the last 25 years. Tim was rated 5th in the state of Michigan over those 25 years. Tim's junior year in track, he won the 100-meter dash at the MHSAA state final. His record-breaking time would set the record amongst all schools regardless of classification or size. On that same day, he placed first in the 200-meter dash. His senior year, he had an injury and could not participate in the state track meet. Tim was valedictorian of his class with a 3.9 GPA. He also starred in the spring musical every year as the lead actor. Tim played running back and linebacker at Penn State University for the legendary Joe Paterno. He is a member of the well-known Linebacker U at Penn State, where he compiled 177 tackles in his career. In 2007, Tim was drafted in the 5th round by the Carolina Panthers. He played 7 years in the NFL with 4 different teams: the Carolina Panthers, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Chicago Bears, and the Tennessee Titans. With the Titans, he was a team captain in his final 2 seasons. He was known around the league as a special teams ace, and the one time he came to Detroit to play against the Lions, he broke an NFL record with 7 special team tackles. Since retiring from football, Tim has enjoyed traveling the world, helping others by building churches, digging wells, and building schools for less fortunate third world countries. He has also written a book called Blitz Your Life. If you haven't read it, it's a wonderful book about his life and the things he's accomplished and ways about accomplishing those. In 2017, Tim donated to the Clarence School District the installation of artificial turf at our stadium. At the same time, the Clarence School District renamed the stadium to be known as David B. McCullough Field at Shaw Stadium. If you notice, he only wanted his last name on it. He didn't want his first name because of the accomplishments his brothers and parents had also done at Clarenceville. Over the years, Tim has made many other monetary contributions to our weight room and football program. 10 years prior to COVID, he annually hosted a free football camp for the first 200 kids that signed up. In 2014, Tim was diagnosed with ALS. Since that day, when he made his announcement with his Ice Bucket Challenge, he has been an advocate for ALS awareness and raising money for the cure of ALS. Tim has not allowed ALS to slow him down. He is living life to the fullest and has gone through a bucket list of lifetime adventures. If you follow him on social media, you'll know what I'm talking about. He has done anything imaginable, especially for somebody with ALS. He will not let ALS slow him down, and he continues to have the most positive attitude of any person I ever met. He always has a smile on his face, and his social media posts are always about how to approach life in a positive way. As his formal coach, I used to just be amazed at what he did as an athlete. As a man who was fighting and beating ALS, and at one time he said, "Coach, I will beat this. It will not get the best of me," he said. "I am just amazed at how he approaches every day with a positive attitude and not to let ALS defeat him." At this time, I am honored to introduce to you a Clarenceville legend, Tim Shaw.
Dear 22-year-old Tim, I want to tell you something. I think you, a senior linebacker at Penn State, should know. But it's going to be tough. I'm only 34 years old, but it's difficult for me to speak. It's also a blessing because it makes every word I say more purposeful. But I want to start with some good news. You're going to the NFL. Your 3 seasons in Tennessee will be incredible. Life will be pretty good. In 2013, at 29 years old, you'll start to notice something happening to your body. It'll start with weird muscle twitches. Your performance on the field will have slipped so much that Titans will cut you. Less than a month after you've officially retired, you're headed to the doctor. And to this moment, I can still hear the doctor's words echoing through my mind. "Tim, I believe you have ALS. You'll be in a daze. You'll just sit there, staring at the doctor, shaking your head, utterly speechless. Once you get outside, then the valet will pull up the car. You'll climb into the driver's seat and close the door. And finally, you'll let it all out. The time Mom and Dad would be one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do. When you finally get the words out, you won't hear anything on the other end of the phone. Just silence. Shock. For the first few months, you're just kind of carrying on. But then, your body will remind you that this is all very real. You'll start dropping things. You'll start falling. A lot. I live in Nashville with Mom and Dad. I have to rely on them for just about everything. Every single day is a struggle for me. And you know what? I'm thankful. I'm coming up on 5 years since diagnosis, and all things considered, I'm doing great. This disease is a process. You can drown yourself in grief, but every second spent grieving these losses will be time stolen from what you still do have. Take a look at your life, Tim. Really step back and ask yourself what's important. Is it football or is it the relationships and people in your life who love you and care about you? Find what's most important in your life and live for that. Don't let 3 letters NFL define you. The same way I refuse to let 3 letters define me. Don't wait for a disease or diagnosis or disaster to start living the way that God intended. So live your best life today and enjoy every little blessing. God bless. Sam.
Wow. What an honor. I never dreamt of things like this as I was running up and down the football field. I just wanted to be the best I could be. I'd like to thank Dan McIver for the nomination, and the board for admitting me into the Hall of Fame. I must thank my high school coach, Greg Hudkins, for helping me realize that the world was bigger than I could see. I'd also like to thank my parents for sending my brothers and I to school where we lived, and for supporting us every step of the way. Wherever I've been, from Clarenceville to Penn State to the NFL in Nashville, I've always been proud of where I'm from. I am always proud to call Livonia home. I want to be remembered for being faithful with the gifts God has given me. I believe that means impacting people. That's why my family supports the educators at Clarenceville School District, and why we hold youth football camps. In my opinion, impacting lives is what will make Livonia a great place to live for years to come, and a city we can continue to be proud of. Thank you.
Do we have anybody here from Clarksville? If we do, besides Stephanie? Anybody at all from Clarksville?
Yeah, all sponsors.
we want you all up here. This tonight is being recorded and will be put on YouTube next week. And we want to send a special picture to Tim tonight when I get home of the Friends from Clarenceville receiving the awards on his behalf. So take your mask off if you can and if you're comfortable, so Tim can see who you are.
Ready? Just come a little bit over in the back, and then you're gonna go in the front and gesture it for us.
This way?
Yep, there we go. Big smiles, 1, 2, and 3. Wonderful, thank you.
Let's all wave and say hello to Tim.
Tim?
Hi, Tim.
Tim. Okay, thanks.
That's quite a man. We've had a succession of elected officials who some have already been introduced to you and others are going to be introduced, but I did want to acknowledge we've also been joined tonight by Councilman Rob Donovan. Now it's my honor to introduce Ted Davis. Parks has always been a priority for Livonia, starting with the father of the Livonia Park System, John Dufour, an inductee of the Livonia Hall of Fame in 2005, and continuing through to our current Parks and Recreation Superintendent, Ted Davis, who's building on the success of our longtime traditions. A graduate of Alma College, Ted also has responsibility for managing the former Community Services Department, which includes Greenview. Please welcome Ted Davis for purposes of introducing Ron Reinke.
Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to be here, and I joked with Ron if I should go off the cuff, and he gave me a dirty look, and I'm sure Bill would as well, so I'll keep this as Bill wrote it here.
Wait a minute, you better remove some of the things I put in there.
Oh, okay. I'll do my best. Ron Reinke began his career as a seasonal employee for the Saginaw Parks and Recreation Department, then became the facilities manager upon completion of his college degree. He moved on to become the assistant superintendent here at Livonia Parks and Recreation, and then on to superintendent, a position he held for over 25 years. He completed his professional career, serving 4 years as the assistant director for Wayne County Parks and Recreation. Ron was instrumental in relighting all of Livonia's baseball and softball diamonds, rebuilding all of Livonia's parks. He oversaw the acquisition and development of Idlewild Golf Course and was part of the team that passed the charter amendment for the recreation millage. The millage provided a permanent source of funding for parks and recreation in the community. The immediate effect of the millage was the addition to the ice arena at Eddie Edgar, the renovation of the senior center, and the completion of the city's park system renovations. It's always difficult to follow in the footsteps of a genuine trailblazer. I know. I am. In this case, the father of our parks program, John Dufour. John Dufour was also a Hall of Fame, 1835 Livonia Hall of Famer, and an M-Parks Hall of Famer. Ron came in, seized the opportunity, and maintained the forward progress started by John, realizing that Livonia had a unique opportunity of being a trailblazer in establishing and maintaining a parks program the envy of all communities across the state. In doing so, he justifiably became a trailblazer in his own right. Later, the millage provided for the construction of the new community center in 2003, which still has the wow factor, and thank you for writing that. Establishing cooperative relationships with other agencies for the common good was a key accomplishment for Ron. He built a strategic partnership with Livonia Hockey Association for the operation of the ice arenas and Livonia Public Schools and other community groups. Ron was a member of the Livonia Community Education Council, Anniversary Committee, Board of Directors, Optimist Club, YMCA Board of Directors, as well as the Detroit Metropolitan YMCA Facilities Improvement Committee. In addition to his responsibilities as a leader of the Parks and Recreation Department, he served on the Central Michigan University Alumni Association Board. It is my pleasure to introduce, for the purposes of induction into the Livonia Hall of Fame, please welcome Ron Reinke. to speak forever sometimes. And I've been working and planning a speech that would probably been a little bit longer than what I'm going to give. And it also sounded like a college lecture that I give very often to the students in my leadership class. But Ted, I want to thank you and Bill for the very kind introduction. I want to congratulate my fellow inductees into the Hall of Fame. Each of you has contributed to the quality of life and the betterment of this very fine community. Being inducted into the 1835 Livonia City Hall of Fame is truly an honor. It's also very humbling to have my name enrolled alongside those of a number of individuals who played an important role in my life, John Dufour for one. I had the good fortune to be a member of several teams in my tenure with the City of Livonia and learned from the leadership of those teams a lot of different things, believe me. Many of those team members and leaders are in the Hall of Fame here in Livonia. Everything that I was able to accomplish was a result of the encouragement and support that I received from those individuals. In closing, I want to thank those who selected me for this honor. Additionally, I want to thank my wife Karen and my sons Steve and Kevin for putting up with my moods and antics. I couldn't have done it without your support and understanding. I love you guys, and thank you all very much.
Mccullough is a graduate of Reinke and probably one of the funniest council members around. Is a graduate of Franklin High School where he captained the hockey team. He attended Lawrence Tech and obtained a degree in construction engineering and now serves as a facilities manager for the Township of Northville. He was elected to the Livonia City Council in 2019. Please welcome with me to have Brandon Mccullough come up for the purposes of introducing the late Alexander Wells.
So I am the Brandon Mccullough that she was referring to. Thank you for that. This is a really good, awesome opportunity to be here. I remember a few years ago sitting in the audience as I was gearing up for my campaign at the time, and how times have changed. But it's so nice to see everybody here and kind of have a little bit of slice of normalcy back. The honorary that we have today, I want to start off by first saying the information that I'm about to share about Alexander Wells was researched by Livonia's historian Kathy Dozier, whose article on Wells first appeared in none other than the Friday News. So we want to give some props to her. But, I did write all of this for the record. No help from Bill. But it was Cyrus Fuller, president of the Michigan Anti-Slavery Society, his brother Edwin, treasurer of the society, and sister-in-law Harriet Delgarmo Fuller, vice president of the society, who lived at 6 and Haggerty and dedicated their lives to freeing all slaves. Protected by these abolitionist families, a small but thriving black community existed in the northwest corner of Livonia in the 1860s. John Speed worked for Dexter Briggs. Fanny Brown lived with the Cyrus Fuller family. Tillman McLeod, Henry Bosley, and Franklin Brooks worked as farm laborers for Arthur Powers. John F. White from Kentucky and his wife Mary Jane from Virginia had a small farm at Livonia Center. Reuben Moore farmed near Arthur Powers' home for a few years before he became coachman in Detroit. Alexander Wells from Wayne, Kentucky, and married Amelia, a runaway from Virginia. In 1860, they had a small farm and even recorded that they had a personal estate Byrne family, who was from Canada, lived with them. By 1863, Congress passed the Conscription Act, drafting men to serve in the military for the first time in the nation's history. Black men were anxious to fight for the Union, an opportunity which had been denied to them. On February 17, 1863, the Michigan Colored Infantry was formed in Detroit. 845 men from across the state signed up. 1 week later, Livonia's Alexander Wells enlisted. February 23, 1865. Judge Alexander Blue, whose home is now at Reinke, but at the time was at what we call Middle Belt, just north of Schoolcraft, filled out the enlistment papers for Alexander Wells, who was illiterate and made his X on the paper. Wells' military records state that he was 5 feet 8 inches tall with black hair and eyes and dark skin. He received a $33.33 advance bounty for signing up. Judge William Yerkes worked to make sure every man received a bounty to support their families while the others were gone. Alexander left behind a young pregnant wife and 2 little girls. The men who signed up did so as volunteers, not as draftees, and eventually over 1,600 black enlisted Michigan men went to war, one of which was Livonia's own Alexander Wells. The troops were assigned to picket outside outpost duty on Hilton Head, St. Helena, and Port Royal. When the need arose, they served bravely in South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, receiving the highest commendation for holding the line under severe fire. They refused to leave the front line even when wounded. The records show that Alexander Wells was assigned to Company K. He mustered out on September 30th, 1865, and was owed $2.17 pay, but he owed $6 for arms and equipment. The muster-out payroll says under remarks, slave, joined from recruiting depot. He did see the end of the war, and he helped rebuild what was left of Charlestown with the company on board the ship Starlight. He would not live to see his baby daughter on the farm. On October 6, 1865, Alexander Wells died of malaria fever. He was buried at Cypress Hill National Cemetery in New York on October 12, 1865. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce, for purposes of induction, the Livonia Hall of Fame. Please everybody arise and give a round of applause to, on behalf of Alexander Wells, the President, Abraham Lincoln.
Start off with a little fact since Brian stole all my thunder about Al. First of all, there's 130 pictures known to be in existence of Abraham Lincoln. In those pictures, there's only 4 that he wore this hat. But everywhere I go, he wants to shoot me and they want my hat. So I'll be briefer than the Gettysburg Address. I'm very pleased to be here tonight. I'm a former Livonianite, or is it Livonian?
Whatever you say.
I lived here for 35 years, and I now live up in Thailand. And I thank the Lord every day. I look in the mirror and I see that He looks like me. So we got something. I'll touch on a few things. You may recognize this picture. I stole it from the garage sale 5 years. On behalf of a grateful nation, I am pleased to represent and thank Alexander Wells for his service and dedication to the war effort. When I issued the Emancipation Proclamation in 1862, it was written in 1862, but it didn't go into effect until January 1st of 1863. African Americans were free to enlist in the Union Army for the first time. By the end of the war, there was roughly 180,000 to 200,000 black men who enlisted into the Army. Of that 180, as far as I know, as long as I lived, about 1/3 didn't make it back home. And Alexander was one example. I didn't know when he died, but thank you for bringing that up. He lasted longer than I did. Many of them signed up to serve in the infantry and the artillery, but discriminatory practices resulted in a large number of them taking remedial jobs. They were cooks, they were laborers. They didn't get the chance to wear their arms in combat. And there was a discrepancy in their pay. They received roughly $10 a month, which of that $10, $3 went for their uniforms, where the white soldiers received $13 and didn't have to pay for their clothing. But there's one quote from Frederick Douglass that I'd like to bring up. He goes on, and I quote him, say, "Once we let the black man get upon his person the brass letters U.S., let him get an eagle on his button and a musket on his shoulder and bullets in his pocket, and there is no power on earth which can deny that he has earned the right of citizenship in these United States." Brian, where is he interred? Did he, does it show anywhere?
Cypress Hills, New York.
And where?
New York National Cemetery.
So the city of New York or?
The state, it's upstate.
Upstate. I go to New York, to Westfield, where Grace Bedell sent me a letter, and I'm going to look him up. Because I didn't know much, but I thank you for his background. And with that, God bless America. I took up some, I saved some time. She came out and seen on your house.
You're definitely gonna have to move so I can see.
I can go left or right.
There we go. Perfect.
You want my good side?
You want to see?
Yeah.
Gotcha, thank you.
Did you get your breath? Who gets this? Does he have those?
Before moving to our last inductee, I also want to recognize the two individuals who've been on the stage with Terry and I doing certificates. We've got with us State Representative Laura Kohutsky, and also standing in for Senator Dana Paul-Henke, who's ill, her Chief of Staff, Dan Centers. I now get to introduce my good friend, Maureen Miller-Brosnan. A member of the City Council for almost 16 years, Maureen was elected as the first female mayor of the City of Livonia in 2019. A graduate of Divine Child High School and Central Michigan University, she previously served as Executive Director of the Michigan Venture Capital Association, and she serves as the chairperson of the St. Mary Mercy Hospital Board of Directors. There's a lot more, but I'll just stay with that for tonight. Put your hands together, please, to welcome my good friend, our really dynamic mayor, Maureen Miller-Brosnan.
Well, good evening, everybody, and it is truly an honor to be here. I think as somebody said earlier, this is really one of my favorite events of the year because I learned so much from it about our history and our present. And do you ever have one of those days where somebody comes into your life and you have no idea what an amazing blessing they are going to be? Well, for me, one of those days happened at this event back in 2016. And I was seated in the audience minutes and preparing to give one of these introductions like this, and Reverend Kelly Whitlock took the stage. And it was the first time that I had met her. It was the first time that many people had met her as the new pastor of Rosedale Gardens Presbyterian Church, and she introduced herself as such. And she went on to say, with a great deal of zeal, that she wanted to make sure that this was a church for everyone, and that we used it for more than a church, that this was a place that we came together to bring safety, to bring information, to share good times, to share sad times. But this was a church that our community could be built on. And she said it with such gusto, and they were lovely words, and I believed the words. And she came down off the stage, and she sat next to me, and she leaned over, and she says, "I really meant it." As if for 1 second, I doubted that she really meant it. And she was going on from there to make every word that she said that day the truth. She's gone on to lead so many community efforts on behalf of not only this church, but of parts of our community that have found themselves in need. In our first responders, Kelly Whitlock has always been there. Our police department counts on the fact that we have a trusted friend in Reverend Kelly Whitlock. The blessings in a bag that were put together for first responders, that were put together for educators in our community, together with the Be Kind Livonia project, which she instituted here, that reminds us that the simple act of kindness can make all the difference when we are all struggling day in and day out to find our way through this horrible pandemic. It was Kelly Whitlock that we turned to for the grace that we needed. And I could not be more proud today than to be able to stand here and induct her into this Hall of Fame. Kelly was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but she grew up on the island of Oahu, Hawaii. Yes, that's where the calm comes from. She completed her undergraduate work in social work at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and attended McCormick Theological Seminary in Chicago, Illinois, to receive her master's in divinity. Upon ordination in 1992, Reverend Whitlock was called to the Allen Park Presbyterian Church in Allen Park, where she served for 9 years as their associate minister, and I am so glad they didn't keep her and that we got her this way. She joined the Rosedale staff in 2001, where she served as the pastor in the position of associate pastor for 15 years until November 1 of 2016, when she became the pastor and head of staff here. She graduated from Madonna University in 2004, where she earned her master's degree in clinical psychology, and it is truly an honor and a pleasure to introduce, for the purpose of induction, into the Hall of Fame, Reverend Kelly Whitlock.
Goodness. So you leave the minister for last. How much time do we have?
It's your place.
When the mayor told that story, she was actually giving the induction for our Cole, who is a member here, and I'd lean over and I go, "Do you know this about art? Do you know this about art?" And it was a wonderful night. So this was really surprising for me. I opened my email, and Bill and I convinced back and forth quite a bit, and I read this email, and I was kind of in shock. And then I kind of sat on it, and I didn't really tell anybody on staff until like 2 days later. Kate, who you met, who is pastor here, comes into my office and goes, "Have you seen the musings today? Your picture's in it." And I'm like, "Oh, I forgot. I have to tell you." I will say this. I do this thing where I show up to stuff, and people say, "Give us a scripture, tell us a story," and do a little reflection. So, everywhere I go, it has to have a theme. If you ask me to pray in the middle of a field, I have to look around and figure out what the theme is to say the prayer. So, my scripture tonight is, "You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you," Philippians 4:13. It's really become the scripture passage for the church, to the point where I've written it on little tiny pieces of paper and handed it into soldiers as they've gone off to deploy, that they put in their wallets
one of my former high schoolers, actually a Marine, had it tattooed on the side of his body and said, "Look, I got the scripture passage." And I went, "Wow, that scripture passage is here to stay." So I believe that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us every day. And I believe that we were never meant to go it alone and be on our own power, and that we're stronger together than we ever are individually. So here's my little story. I was a first-year student in seminary, and I was thinking about how young I was as I was looking around to a class that had folks that were 50 years and older, and I did the traditional. I went to high school, to college, to seminary. So I showed up at age 22. I moved into the dorm, and I literally had pigtails in my hair. So I was pretty young, and I realized pretty fast that I had to get a lot of experience. And so I went to somebody who was older, and actually it was a former pastor here named Ruth Billington, and she was a classmate of mine. And she had had many great experiences with many pastors. And one day we were sitting having lunch, probably sitting on the floor at McCormick Theological Seminary, and I said, "What's the best advice you got from a pastor who's like old, who's done it for a really long time?" And she looked at me and she said, "Well, once I asked this one pastor, he says there's 3 things you need to know when you're first starting out in the ministry that are going to mean even more on the day you retire." And I'm like, "All right, what is it? I'm ready." She said, "Love the people, love the people, love the people." I love the people. And I believe that we are called, all of us, through citizenship, through our churches, through our foundation, to love one another. And Mr. Rogers is my favorite Presbyterian pastor, will always be, and I've been in the school of Mr. Rogers for a long time. And so I would like to also thank all those who came before me, not only as Presbyterian ministers, not only as pastors at this church, but in the city, who continue to inspire me. And certainly all of those who were nominated tonight. What incredible stories we've heard. And I do believe that one person can make a difference. And I do believe that we're stronger together. So all these crazy ideas about kindness campaigns and crazy things happen sometimes when I'm sitting in my office. And I sit on it for about 24 hours, and I try to figure out if it's me or Jesus, because it really has to be Jesus. And so I get my best material from him. So may God bless you, and may God keep you, and may together we continue to build a stronger Livonia by loving the people, loving the people, loving the people. Thank you.
Slideshow, the video we've had today was done by Kate Mackey. Let's give her a round. I have a feeling you'll applaud even louder when I say, "Would you come up, Kate, and lead us in a benediction so we can all go home?"
So my friends, it is my hope and prayer that as you leave this place this evening, that you are inspired by this amazing class of 2021. These people whose lives have been used to the good of this community. And how blessed are we that we have been able to sit in their presence tonight. And it is also my hope and prayer that you all leave this place knowing that the Creator, Sustainer, and Redeemer has blessed each and every one of you and has called you beloved. Go in peace. Amen.